I think it's time to start this seminar, and I would like to give the first session for Pak Sarkawi to give a short speech, and then Ulina to open this seminar.
Okay, thank you, Pak Joni. Dr. Salina Sedol, Dr. Manjusa Kurupat, Dr. Laude Rabani, welcome to Surabaya. Welcome to our department, even if only via Zoom. Nice to meet you. I want to say thank you for giving a lecture to our student today. I think this is an interesting course and very important for us and for our students. And spices and contesting hegemony in historical perspective, we know, are always interesting to discuss, I think. So therefore, once again, thank you for sharing your knowledge to our students. And I hope when the COVID pandemic is over, we can meet in Surabaya next time. Surabaya is the city of heroes. And all for the participant of this seminar, kepada seluruh mahasiswa kami, manfaatkan sebaik-baiknya forum ini. Ini adalah forum yang langka, mendatangkan via Zoom Dr. Salina Senol, Dr. Kurupat dalam forum yang sangat penting ini, dan tentu juga Pak Laude. Jadi monggo dimanfaatkan dengan berdiskusi sebaik mungkin, menyerap berbagai pengetahuan dari ketiga narasumber kita. Saya pikir begitu Pak Joni, terima kasih dan selamat berseminar semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you Pak Sarkawi. And please Bu Lina to give opening speech for this seminar.
Thank you very much Pak Joni. Good afternoon, everyone. I think by right now is 4 p.m. right in Malaysia, and I don't know exactly at what time now. I think Dr. Manjusa is in somewhere in Britain, maybe about probably at 9 a.m. Yeah. Okay, everyone. First of all, I would like to deliver my warmest greetings to all the speakers, Dr. Salina Zainal from University of Malaya, and then also Dr. Manjusa Krupat from former lecturer at the Brasenose College, Oxford, and then also our newest doctor, Pak Laude Rabani, and also thank you very much for Johnny Alfian for moderating this very important public lecture. Okay, first of all, I also to deliver my high appreciation to the Department of History, that day by day I always very impressed because how the department always try to arrange the very good series of a discussion, could be in a form of a public lecture, and then also I think in a series of workshop, many kinds of academic activities. I think this is very important for all of us, how then we can build a good circumstance of knowledge building in our faculty. And the topic today is also very interesting, spices and contesting hegemony in Nusantara. If not mistaken, probably we can also translate this Nusantara as an archipelago, right? Kepulauan, something like that. Is it correct to translate this Nusantara as an archipelago?
Yeah, that's correct. The modern translation of Nusantara.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course, this is very important because we know Indonesia is the biggest archipelagic state in the world. And then also the matters of spices, and then also anything that related to the spices is also unseparated part of our history. We know that the first reason why like the adventurer, the colonizer from the Western place coming here is because of the spices. And I think to see this from the perspective of history is never been out of dated. It always updated. We understand, we become more understand about our today situation because we know how our history. And then with this, I really welcome all this public lecture. I do hope that all the students and also I think all my colleagues also can learn and may get something from our today's discussion. Okay, on behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Purnawan Basundoro, he says sorry cannot attend this very important lecture because at the same time he has to represent the university for certain occasion, for certain official occasion. Okay, I'm glad to join with all of you, and officially I open this public lecture with the hope that it can be a continuous tradition among the Department of History and also for all of us in the Faculty of Humanities. Okay, have a great, happy public lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Bulina, for opening the seminar. So I have double roles today, being an MC and being the chair of this seminar. So I just want to give a short introduction that for this topic of the seminar, because we will have the same idea of these topics, that spices were an important part of the glorious history of the archipelago, I think. And spices were the main commodity which traded in the archipelago and the surrounding area. Through this trading activity, intense interaction was created between people in the archipelago. This interaction contributes to the development of communities and regions in the archipelago, which was not only in the scope of trade and economy, but also in other fields such as religion, social affairs, the growth of trading centers, which later become coastal cities, yeah, and so on. The traces that were the legacy of the socio-economic interaction through these spices that we can find today. But the presence of Europeans in the archipelago at the time, make the activities more lives, yeah? And the high economic value of spices at the time encouraged Europeans to dominate spice trade, and they attempted to monopolize the spice trade. That was evident in the desire of the Europeans to control important spice trading posts, including Malacca, that will be taught by Dr. Salina Zainal. And the desire for monopoly was also only carried out through fair negotiations and battles, but also with excessive violence, as happened in the island of Banda, on which will be the topic of Dr. Kurupat and maybe Dr. Rabani as well, who will talk about the Amboina Wars. Amboina Wars. Yes, this seminar will last until 5 p.m. Therefore, to save time, I will give each speaker 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. And after the 3 speakers have finished their presentation, I will open a discussion session.
it freeze? Maybe Pak Laude may continue before Pak Johnny return to the Zoom meeting. Or I don't know, someone from the department.
Is the connection good or not? Because I think, yeah, I hear your voice and can see you, Dr. Lina, but
yeah, sure. I mean that probably okay. Oh, okay. In the department, that's why everyone in the department cannot connect this. Just wait like for a few minutes. I think it will return.
It's okay. I will wait.
Okay. It sometimes happen. Pak Laude di mana ya Pak Laude? Where are you Pak Laude?
Is in his home.
Okay. Good. Pak Johnny back already. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. The internet connection is down in the university. So, but yeah, okay. Let's start again. I will give this for the first chance to Dr. Salina Zainal. She is the lecturer at the University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, and she works on Indonesian modern history, if I'm not mistaken, and she also interested in the classical period of Southeast Asia. She published several articles in journal articles, and and the topic she would like to present today is about the Malacca, the area which was occupied by the Portuguese for 130 years, if not mistaken, and Dutch occupied occupied Malacca for more than 150 years. Okay, please take your time, Bu Salina.
Yeah. You know what? Yes. Thank you very much, Pak Joni, and thank you, Pak Sarkawi, and also Bapak Ibu Lina. Yeah. But actually, you have to give me some time because actually I want to share my PowerPoints, but the problem is I have problem with maneuvering internet. I'm not good actually. I want to share
your PowerPoint presentation to me or in this chat room. Then one of my
I've got a presentation here, but I don't know how to. I usually help assisted by my students, but now the student who used to assist me, she went back to Kelantan, so I've got problem with.
Please click the share screen, then.
Share screen.
Open the PowerPoint presentation.
I don't understand. Wait. Share screen. Yes. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes.
You see that? First of all, I have to apologize that I already prepared my PowerPoint in Malay language, but we can discuss in English. I don't have a problem discuss in English discussion. Okay.
This is a bilingual
Bilingual is fine with me actually. But for Dr. Manjusa, if you have any questions afterwards, we can discuss later. But actually, with our prior to this, this event, before that, the main focus, how I prepared, why I prepared like this. Actually, I thought it was just a lecture, normal lecture to students in Unair, So later on, when I was informed by Dr. Lauder that we are going to have kind of a small seminar, this kind of thing. So I think the topics that I've chosen maybe not not exactly focused on spice. Actually, it's more towards more on the Portuguese administration in Malacca. Why I choose this topic? Because we do have some documents, Portuguese documents that we have in our collections, in our university collections, which are actually, I have few discussions with other friends in Unhas, University Hasanuddin, University Sriwijaya, and I was informed by them that, they're in Indonesia, I think they have lack of Portuguese sources on Malacca or something like that. So that's why I think that this is quite a topic, interesting topic for me to discuss with students in Indonesia, since we do have this Portuguese sources, which was actually already translated by Father Pintado. It's quite a good collection, number of Portuguese documents. So that's why I prepared, my PowerPoint focusing on that. So, but if there is any questions or there are any questions later relating to the spice trades or anything, we can discuss. Okay. So first of all, I would like to discuss, about the earlier informations about Malacca. How the Portuguese get to know Malacca, how did they get information, and why they send Vasco da Gama. Before that, it was Bartolome Dias, and then the Vasco da Gama to come to the east. So this is actually quite a debatable kind of fact, because when we discuss about the Portuguese and the Spanish, when they came here, we always say that they came because of God, because of the religion. They came here to find Prester John, because the Spanish and the Portuguese, they actually involved in the Crusade War with the Muslims, and then they wanted to find someone that, who were actually in their folks. It's not folk tales. It's something that they believe there will be someone religious from the east, who will help them out to win over the Muslims. Okay. Which they call, Prester John, we always, I think, I'm not sure in Indonesia, but last time when I was in secondary school, we were taught by our teachers that the Portuguese came here to look for Prester John, which will help them to win over the Muslims, So those were the thing. But actually, it's quite a debatable kind of fact when this is discussion on whether they really came for religion, or it was the commercial activities or commerce or the trade which brought them here. Okay, so but anyway, we start with my first slide, which is actually about the early informations about Malacca and how they came here. After that, the first mission, the first Portuguese mission, which was actually led by Almeida, 1505. Almeida, they came and they, they came as traders, but actually they came under the banner of the Portuguese crown. Okay, but later on, they came, they act as traders, and then after that, and they came under with the Muslim trading ships, and after that, when people knew that they were actually under a mission sent by the Crown of Portugal. After that, they nearly being killed. But later on, 1508, Diego Lopez Esquira sent to Malacca. And this is a very interesting issue discussed by Sardesai and also C.R. Boxer. C.R. Boxer said that Diego Lopez Esquira, if really the Portuguese sent their mission here for the purpose of the religion, surely Lopez Esquira was not asked to, to initiate a peace relations with Malacca, with the Sultanate of Malacca, and to ask for a place to for their trading headquarters. Okay, if really they came for the religion, so surely Diego Lopez Esquira was sent to, to find a place to build a church or something like that. But instead, the Esquira was actually, he was sent there to make a contract or treaty with the Malacca Sultanate on commercial basis. So that was one of the arguments, posed by Sardesai and also C.R. Boxer, that actually, they came purposely, not because of religion, but it was because of commercial activities or trading activities. So we know that Esquira, actually, when he came there, the Malacca was ruled by Sultan Ahmad. It was not Sultan Mahmud, it was Sultan Ahmad, actually, the son of Sultan, Sultan Mahmud and Kelantanese princess. So Sultan Ahmad. At first, Sultan Ahmad invited Esquira for, if I'm not mistaken, for a dinner, something like that, for royal dinner. Yeah? But there came a kind of a story of Banda to Mutahir. Banda Mutahir was very close to the Muslim traders from India, actually people from the Malabar coast. And then this is actually a story from the documents from the Dutch document, the Portuguese documents. But when we compare to the Sejarah Malacca, it's actually a different thing. It's quite a little bit different. If we compare Portuguese documents, it said that Banda Mutahir was instrumental in making, in creating a news that the Portuguese came there to attack Malacca instead of to sign a treaty with the Malacca Sultanate. So as a result of that, the Sultan after that sent an army to surround the ship, and after that their trading ship, the Portuguese ship, and after that 20 of the crew member of the Esquira mission were arrested, including Raujo. But Esquira himself managed to flee. Okay, so this is the story. But if we read in Sejarah Melayu, I think they don't put the name they use is actually Gonzales Pereira. It's totally a different name. Okay, Gonzales Pereira, and it's quite conflicting facts in Sejarah Melayu, because in Sejarah Melayu we know that Bendahara Putu Mutahir was said to be killed even before Sultan Ahmad became the Sultan of Malacca. So this is actually one of the issues that I would like to highlight here. When I prepared this PowerPoint. Okay, but anyway, we can discuss later. So after that, the news about the arrest of Lopez Esquira crew reached India. It reached because before Goa became the headquarters or one of the port of Portuguese, Portuguese already had Diu and also Cochin. So only 1510 that Goa was attacked and captured by the Portuguese. So actually, after the fail of the Esquira mission, Dom Manuel, the king of Portugal, sent Diogo de Vasconcelos Vasconcelos. Actually, he was the royal mission to be sent by Domino to Malacca. It was not Alfonso. That's another thing, which is very interesting if we read the Portuguese document. It was not Alfonso, Alfonso Albuquerque. Yeah. So Alfonso was actually sent to attack Goa. He was not sent to Malacca. Okay. Vasconcelos was the one who was sent by the king to attack Malacca. Okay, but the problem is Alfonso after that had, you know, hijacked the task given to Vasconcelos, and Vasconcelos himself was put in jail, and his crew or his crew, the crew came with him were killed. They were killed by Alfonso de Albuquerque. And after that, he was actually, he got a royal order to go to Red Sea, actually, to manage the Portuguese trading or Portuguese trade in Red Sea. But instead of going to Red Sea, Alfonso came to Malacca as a royal mission and attacked Malacca. So this is very interesting fact that I think not many historians mentioned this. Okay, and then after him and Alfonso got the news about everything, information about Malacca by the letter sent by Rio de Araujo via Nina Chatu. Nina Chatu is actually a Coromandel trader who has assisted the Rio de Araujo. Rio de Araujo was in prison. He was in prison with other 19 crew member. So he managed to send the letter through Nina Chatu, and then that letter sent to Alfonso at the time when Alfonso was in Goa. But using the traders, the traders. And then apart from that, there was also the, the role by one, if I'm not mistaken, lady from Champa. So it's very interesting. This is actually mentioned in the book written by the Tsar, and also in the writings of João de Barros and a number of other Portuguese documents. Okay, this is actually how they attacked Malacca, and they managed to, to win over Malacca or capture Malacca. And after Malacca fall, actually the Sultan Muhammad took over the throne and became the Sultan of Malacca again. And then under his royal order, Sultan Ahmad was killed. The Raja Ahmad was killed, and his tombstone is actually in Riau. I visited his tombstone and his grave. His grave. So his grave is not really a proper kind of royal grave. Maybe in Sejarah Melayu is already there is a story that to tarnish the. Actually, for Malay, we cannot say that to tarnish. Actually, to degrade a little bit. Why Sultan Ahmad, being killed, something like that, under the royal order, because it was said that he was the one who didn't follow the advice given by the old ministers. So that was one of the reasons. So maybe the other reason, because Sultan Mahmud wanted to put his other son, Sultan Alauddin or Raja Ali, to become the heir of the Sultanate. So this is one of the interesting debate too. And also other thing which I would like to mention or discuss about the Portuguese, after the attack, which is very interesting too, which I really want to share with all the students and also our friends here, counterparts here. In one of the letter written by Alfonso to the King of Portugal, he mentioned about a lot of the weapons and also artillery from Malacca that they had, hijacked, or they had taken after the attack. And then Korea said that the artillery technology in Malacca was very high, and they also they have a bit, because Korea in his writing, Korea said, based on the letter written by Alfonso, that Malacca has unrivaled artillery technology. In Malacca is unrivaled to any other land, including Portuguese or Portugal. So this is very interesting. So because all this while people are looking or saying that, okay, the technology, artillery technology in South Asia is actually a little backward as compared to the European technology. But I found out in Portuguese document, okay, they say that artillery technology in Java and also in Malacca very highly, the technology is very high as compared to Portuguese themselves, the Portuguese themselves. So this is very interesting. Okay, and also other things that Alfonso in the letter, Alfonso mentioned about the jewelry from the Sultanate of Malacca also being taken, and actually the jewelry is meant to be given to the crown of Portugal, but unfortunately in January 1512, on the way back to Goa, so the ship Flodoma, which brought all these things that they had taken from Malacca, sunk, okay, in Malacca, in Malacca, what is it? Selat, I forgot. Okay, Malacca Strait. Okay,
Great.
Yeah, Malacca Strait. Sorry. So, and also Alfonso also had made an order that Portuguese cannot, the Portuguese army or military, they shouldn't take any property of the Indian traders. Indian traders, here is actually the commander traders. Because the commander traders, one of them, the important one is in Chatu, because they are Hindus. So they help the Portuguese and also traders from Pegu and also traders from China. So these traders, they help the Portuguese instead of helping the Malacca Sultanate during the attack. So the Javanese helping the Sultanate, and also the Muslim traders from India and Parsi helping the Sultanate instead of helping the Portuguese. Okay, this is actually one of the things which is very interesting, discussed by Sardesa and also CR Boxer, why Portuguese is actually the administration in Portugal actually based on the absolute monarchy. So they have no experience of civil administration. Okay, so Malacca became the Fortaleza de Malacca, and then it's put under Estadia de India. Estadia de India, which actually centered in Goa, with the highest position is the governor. And then after that, until 1571, and after 1571, it was put on direct administration under the Portuguese crown. And the highest position in Malacca is captain, or some said captain. The Aridia said actually is captain major. It's not captain, but in other Portuguese writings, it just mentioned captain, not captain major or captain mayor. Yeah. So they are actually appointed. Most who were appointed as captain major or captain were the Fidalgos. Fidalgos are actually the we got noblemen in the Portuguese society, Fidalgos. And the appointment is actually a royal under royal order. It's actually they are appointed by the king themselves, king himself. Okay, and they were helped assisted by the judge, auditor, provider, and clerks. So if we read the Dutch, I'm sorry, I always mention Dutch. The Portuguese document is mentioned also the judge in Malacca. They cannot actually. They can only they can only so accusation or anything happening relating to the law is only they can only do it to the ordinary or the lower class Portuguese, like traders, they cannot preceded cases which related to the fidalgos and also the military officers. Okay, if anything wrong or wrongdoing, actually committed by fidalgos, means that captain or captain major, or also the high rank military. So the cases will be, the judge only can report, and the cases will be brought over to the king. Only the king can punish or can preside the this session or law session or anything to punish the military high rank officer or captain major. Okay, so there is actually the limitations of the judge power. They have a auditor or provider and clerk, but at the same time, the Portuguese government or Portuguese administration in Malacca still retain some of the positions which they were practiced in Malacca's Sultanate. The three important ones were Bendahara, Temenggung, and Shah Bandar. So the first Bendahara after the Portuguese administration, during the Portuguese administration in Malacca, was Nena Shatu. Nena Shatu was the first Bendahara Malacca, and he was actually appointed by Alfonso, to be the Bendahara. So, but Alfonso was the one who actually later on gave that position to Raja Abdullah from Kampar to, replace Nena Shatu. So this is a very interesting story. So how, later on Nena Shatu killed himself, he burned himself. He committed suicide in front of all the Portuguese officers, because he was so disappointed with the treatment given to him after all the assistance that he had given to the Portuguese. So he was very disappointed. So later on, Raja Abdullah was appointed to be the Bendahara of Malacca, but there was also, Bartolomeo Preseto. He was the one who made a story that Raja Abdullah was actually the son-in-law of Sultan Mahmud. So he made a story that Raja Abdullah wanted to be the Bendahara of Malacca, later on wanted to bring Sultan Mahmud back to Malacca, means that Raja Abdullah was not sincere in giving assistance or showing his loyalty to the Portuguese administration in Malacca. So finally, Raja Abdullah was beheaded. In front of the public. He was killed by the Portuguese officer, but later on they knew that it was the story was actually a fabricated one. It was not a true story. So this is a very then later on in the Portuguese document said that after the killing of Raja Abdullah of Kampar, so Malacca has experienced the famine. Famine, that famine means kemarau, and so means that they couldn't plant anything. There were no food, and so they said that was actually the cause of killing someone who was innocent. Okay, so what else? So in trade, during the Portuguese administrations, they had introduced Portuguese real, which is actually in silver dollar. Okay, they also still maintain the Malacca money currency, which is called Kalain. They Other currency which were very important in Malacca then during the Portuguese administration was the pegu and martaban coins. Yeah, because Portuguese had a very important trading activities in martaban and also in pegu and as well as in Pasai. Yeah? So during the Portuguese administrations, before 1542, before the sending of Simão Batelo as the custom advisors there, so they had increased the we call it what is it tariff, import tariff, because in Malacca during the Sultanate there was no export tariff or export tax, because Malacca itself doesn't have its own resources. Okay, so the tax only imposed on the imported goods. For example, 6% from all imported goods from India and Arab and everything, and from China there is 5% tariff or tax on imported goods. So for the people or the traders around Malay archipelago, only they have to pay only for the use of weighing instruments. Okay, that is 3%. So those are very lenient kind of tax during the Malacca Sultanate, where foodstuff they don't have. I mean, traders who brought foodstuff either from Malay archipelago or from India or from Arab or Parsi, from the west country on the west of Malacca or from China, so they don't have to pay tax, okay, for the foodstuff. So, but during the Portuguese, actually the first from 1511 to 1512 until 1520s, they still maintain the tax system which used to be practiced during Sultanate era. But later on, the tax will increase, for example, 10% from the traders coming from China, whether they brought, non-foodstuff goods or any other goods, they still have to pay 10%. So 10% ad valorem of the value of the imported goods that they brought, and 12% ad valorem from any imported goods from India, including foodstuff. Okay, and 8% from the traders coming from Pegu and Bertaban, and also archipelago, they have to pay 8% ad valorem of the value of the whole imported stuff. So these are very this tax is kind of burden to the traders, and that is why we know that after the fall of Malacca, there was the rise of Aceh, and later on the rise of Johor Riau, and also the rise of Patani. So these traders later on, they dispersed to other ports. Okay, so because of the treatment given by the Portuguese, and the tax system there was very burdensome. Okay, only later on when Simão Batelo, he was sent to Malacca to become the custom advisor or custom officer. So he attempted to bring back all the tax system which used to be practiced during the Sultanate era, because for him the tax system which was practiced during Sultanate era was actually the most moderate one, and especially when relating to foodstuff. So he free any tax on the foodstuff, because Malacca itself doesn't produce its own foodstuff. So really Malacca need food from rice, especially from India, from Pegu, from Martaban. They need rice from those places, and also this and he brought back tax, 6% imported ad valorem tax on imported goods from India, as the pre-Portuguese era. which is for him is not burdensome as compared to during the period before he became the custom advisor. But Sima Botello finally, you know, not being liked by the captain major at that time. So he was, his service was terminated. Okay.
Excuse me, Dr. Salina, you still have 5 minutes left.
Oh, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, in other things, and in administrations on the Society of Malacca, so the Portuguese had practiced indirect rule. So it means that in Malacca, for example, in Chatu, he was the Bendara of Malacca before he was killed. And he also was appointed as the leader for the Indian from Coromandel or the Klings or the Hindu, or in Dutch language is called it Gentiv, okay, Klings. And the Javanese were actually, there were two, it's very interesting that in Portuguese documents, they mention about the leader of the Javanese in Upe, which he was called Pate, he was called Pate Kader or Pate Kider or Kader, something like that. And Javanese on the Hilir, living or residing in the Hilir, they were actually led by Tuan Kolazar. But between Pate Kadir and Tuan Kolazar later on, became the very loyal to the Portuguese as compared to Pate Kadir. Pate Kadir, he's Pate Kadir actually he has, I'm not sorry, Utimuti Raja, he has a session with Utimuti Raja. Both of them are against the Portuguese, okay? So there was another Javanese leader which mentioned during the Josh Albuquerque is actually Patrodem. So Patrodem, yeah, is actually the one who has a very good connection with the Portuguese administration in Malacca. So I'm not going to mention about the this war between Aceh, Johor, and Malacca, because it's actually not part of our discussion for the day. But if there is any questions after later, we can discuss on this. Okay, so this is actually when the Portuguese was attacked by the Dutch and the Johor military, and then later on 1641 Portuguese was Malacca was captured by the Dutch. Okay, this is another thing I wanted to highlight here is actually why the Portuguese fail when we in most of the articles or the writings or the research done by C.R. Boxer, Ian McGregor, and C.R. Sardesai said one of the reasons was because Portuguese was not the Portuguese people or the Portuguese administration. They are not. They actually not. They don't really have a very strong civil administration. So when they came here, to Malacca, they've been assisted by officers from the local officers and also the traders. So their lack of experience in civil administration, and also they are also the nepotism and corruptions took place during the Portuguese administration. So you see that Albuquerque, so he had his cousin became the captain twice, and also his nephew also became the captain mayor, and also 4 of Vasco da Gama's sons also became used to become or appointed as a captain mayor in Malacca. And also the other thing is actually the fall of Malacca trade due to the treatment of the Portuguese administration. I'm so sorry, of the Portuguese administration in Malacca on the traders, especially Muslim traders, because during the Malacca Sultanate, we know that the backbone of Malacca trades was the trading between Malacca and the ports in India, especially in India and also up to Red Sea. Okay, so but during the Portuguese era, the Gujaratis, Malabaris, and Bengalis, they were Muslim traders, but they had a very hard, very bad treatment by the Portuguese, and later on they moved to, they dispersed to either Patani and also Aceh and also Johor Riau. So it became a disaster to the Malacca trade activities itself. Okay, that is one of the reasons. And this is the thing which I already mentioned just now. Debate with what is actually the factor, the main factor of the Portuguese expansion to the east, to the Africa, and also especially we discussed about Malacca is referring to Asia. So these are the things which I mentioned just now, that many writers before this had mentioned that God came first, or religion came first, they later on gold and glory. But actually, according to Sardesa and C.R. Boxer, they said that gold actually was the main focus, or the main reason why the Portuguese came to the east, actually compared to God. And even Francis Xavier, when he was in Malacca, he mentioned that Malacca was the administration of Malacca was very ungodly. So that was how, Xavier observed about the Portuguese administration in Malacca. It was governed ungodly. So because actually the Portuguese officers in Malacca, they were actually thinking about money, and most of them, like the Portuguese officers in Malacca, they also have their own trade mission. They sent to Siak, they sent to Pasai, for the purpose of getting spice and also getting paper from, especially paper in Sumatra. They sent to Siak and also to Pasai. So they actually they themselves, involved in trading activities. So that's why when Xavier said they didn't administer Malacca like, religiously or follow the tenets of the Christianity, but they actually very, lust for this one, for money and wealth. So that's why Xavier said like that. So that is, so with that, I end my presentation. If there is any other questions or any more questions later, I'm going to brief you about. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Pak Johnny, I think I've finished my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Salina, for your excellent presentation about the fall of Malacca and the reason behind the Portuguese to conquest Malacca. And the second opportunity I would like to give to Dr. Manjusa Kurupat. She is an independent scholar, but she did her doctorate degree in Leiden, even in her BA and MA, I think. And she would like to, she worked in Oxford University for about 2 years, but she's now become an independent scholar. Dr. Manjusa is talking about imagining the Banda Massacre. So I think it's very interesting topic. Time is yours, Dr. Kurupat.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Johnny Kusheri for inviting me to participate in the seminar. Both of us had studied together. We had actually done a master's together at the University of Leiden, and I clearly remember that we had also presented a seminar together at that stage. So it's quite nice to actually be able to collaborate 10 years on. And I also look forward to future collaborations, academic collaborations between us. So my paper is titled Imagining the Banda Massacre in the 17th Century Dutch Republic. If we were in Banda exactly 400 years ago, we would have witnessed the terror unleashed by the Dutch East India Company, which led to the Banda Massacre. In 1621, the Dutch East India Company, led by the Governor General Jan Pieterszoon Koen, conquered the Banda Islands to control the nutmeg and maize trade. With this, Koen also wanted to put an end to the English and Portuguese ambitions of capturing the islands. But the process of takeover was not easy. The Bandanese put up a stiff resistance. Thousands of them were killed in battle. Others died of hunger trying to escape Dutch capture, or were taken as slaves to Batavia. The islands were then converted into a nutmeg plantation colony under Dutch control. So the very thought that thousands of people were killed for spices would send a shiver down your spine. But the massacre, however, was not always thought of with the horror that it now invokes today. In fact, it was only in the 19th century that this episode received censure and came to be regarded as the black page in Dutch history. So this talk will go back to the beginning and will ask how the story was told in the 17th century, in the century that the episode happened. So two key works which have studied the cultural foundations of empire are Edward Said's Orientalism and Culture and Imperialism. Said defines culture as a structure of attitude and reference across a variety of contexts, ranging from, I quote, specialized knowledge in learned disciplines to narratives, histories, travel tales, and explorations, unquote. According to Said, the effects of empire on culture are twofold. Firstly, it creates a totalizing discourse. This discourse, which he also refers to as a cultural archive, is best described as the ideological foundation for colonial rule. It provides the justification for colonization. Another significant feature of imperial culture was to avoid any discussion of colonial excesses, such as the use of violence in the process of conquest. Now, like Said's works, the Dutch anthropologist also discusses the themes of cultural archive and dominant discourse in her book titled White Innocence. Now, Gloria Wecker, she focuses specifically on the Dutch experience, and she argues that the cultural archive not only legitimized colonization, but it also became central to Dutch identity. She says that in the modern day, the Dutch reflect on their colonial past with pride. They fail to remember or even speak about their role in the global slave trade or the brutality that they showed when putting down independence movements in 20th century Indonesia. So with these theorizations in mind, my talk will study narratives about the Banda Massacre in the 17th century to ask the following questions. What is colonial culture? How does print culture contribute to the making of culture? And how do we make sense of the cultural archive in the context of the Banda Massacre? So to answer these questions, I discuss two categories of accounts. The first group comprises of accounts of the massacre in the form of letters, which were sent by Dutch East India Company employees to their superiors in Amsterdam. Although these letters were written in the 17th century, they were only published as late as the 19th century. The second category of narratives are those which were published in the 17th century Dutch Republic and were therefore available for a wider audience to read in the same period. So let me begin by discussing the first set of accounts, which were kept away from the public eye all through the 17th century and were only published in the 19th century. So it is these works that perhaps tell us everything that we know about the Banda Massacre today and what happened afterwards. So the first of these accounts were letters written by the architect of the massacre, Jan Pieterszoon Koen, to the directors of the Dutch East India Company in 1621. So the letters narrate events from Koen's departure from Batavia to Banda in early 1621 till what happened until the end of the year. So Koen reaches Banda on 27th February 1621 with nearly 2,000 troops. Their first two attempts to take the islands were unsuccessful, and Koen bitterly ascribed these failures to the plotting of the English. In their third attempt, they attacked Lontor on the island of Banda Basar from two fronts and were successful in overpowering the inhabitants who fled for the hills. Now, the conquest of Lontor was significant because it weakened the resolve of the other groups of Bandanese living in Kombar, Wire, Salam, and Run to put up a fight, and it instead drew them to the negotiating table. However, when the Dutch decided to transport these Bandanese who had surrendered to Batavia, many of them fled, fearing for their lives. Those who remained were loaded onto a ship, which was called the Dragon, which sailed away to Batavia. The Dutch then resorted to viler tactics to capture those who had fled. They blocked all avenues of escape by burning Bandanese boats and continued to maintain an armed presence in the islands to conquer them. When the Dutch finally entered the Bandanese strongholds in July 1621, they beheld a dreadful sight. Mass graves in their thousands dotted the hills of Salama and Waya, and many of the surviving Bandanese preferred to throw themselves off the cliffs rather than surrender to the Dutch. So Koen's letters tell us all of these details. Yet surprisingly, Koen in his letters justifies the terror that he had unleashed. He wrote that the treaties that the Dutch had signed with the Bandanese in previous years, seeking exclusive rights to the spice trade, were grossly ineffective. Any attempt at peace with the Bandanese, he said, was violated. Koen, moreover, was certain that the conquest would have beneficial consequences. Now, this was a time when the Dutch were trying to control trade in Southeast Asia at large. And Koen saw that their violent conquest of Banda would create such a formidable reputation for the Dutch that it would discourage anyone in the East Indies from challenging them in war. Now, the second narrative in this category is titled Rapport van Persona komende uit Oost-Indien, which translates as the report of people coming from the East Indies. Now, this was supposed to have been authored by Artus Gijsels in 1622. Gijsels was a subordinate of Jan Pietersen Koen in Asia and a vehement critique of his policies. This work does not discuss the Panda Massacre, but it tells us about the fate of those Bandanese who had reached Batavia. So Koen supposedly discovered that they were conspiring against the Dutch and proceeded to punish them. Some of them were put to death, and others were separated from their wives and children and sent back to Banda. Now, this worried the author of the account, Artus Gijsels, because he feared that the Bandanese would avenge the slaughter soon enough. What is interesting about Gijsels' work is that although it is critical about the way in which Koen treated the Bandanese, it takes a very different view of how the company occupied Banda after the conquest. For the author, the manner in which the island was divided up into nutmeg plantations, which were then worked on by slaves, was a foolproof method to ensure that the company was always in profit. So this work, the Rapport van Persona, was therefore a personal attack on Koen, and it was not a well-rounded critique of the company. Now, the third contemporary account, which dealt with the Banda episode, was Verhaal van enige oorlogen in India, which translates as the tale of some wars in the Indies. Now, like the previous account, the Rapport, the Verhaal justifies the conquest. It claimed that the wars were necessary wars and that the Bandanese were a roguish lot who could be congenial with no one in the world. It lamented the scale of violence, not because it was inhumane, but because the islands without its inhabitants now lay desolate, and the nutmeg harvests were no longer as bountiful as they once were. And the work asks in all incredulity, it says, Could they not have retained the simplest and humblest Bandanese? What do we do with land without people? So to briefly summarize this section, the three accounts that I spoke about had contradictory opinions of the massacre. Kun in his letters argued that it was necessary. On the other hand, the other two accounts barely masked their horror at the violence that was unleashed. One of them did this to critique Kun, and the other did so, and they saw it as beneficial for the Dutch East India Company. Now, this brings me to the next set of accounts about the massacre. As I mentioned before, these works were all published in the Republic in the. So the first work was a pamphlet titled The same year that the conquest took place, 1621. As the conquest had created a great deal of political hostility between the English and the Dutch, the pamphlet was a part of a propaganda campaign to reduce tensions and prevent the possibility of war between the English and the Dutch. And this pamphlet wanted to disprove allegations of Dutch aggrandizement and convince everyone that the Dutch were reasonable in their actions. So needless to say, the pamphlet paints the Dutch in the best possible light. The English and the Bandanese are, on the other hand, shown to have violated the provisions of the treaties that they had signed with the Dutch. While the English are accused of treachery, it is the Bandanese who are vilified to a far greater extent. They're accused of robbery, murder, and forcibly converting Dutchmen to Islam. Now, this work, the Warachte Verhaal, is mostly based on Kun's letter. But what this pamphlet does differently is celebrate the bravery of the Dutch soldiers and commanders and highlight the casualties suffered by the Dutch. The most important and undoubtedly surprising element in the pamphlet is the omission of any mention of the Panda Massacre. Unlike Kun's letters, not a word is written about the deaths in the Bandanese camp. On the contrary, it offers instances of Bandanese cruelty. As a consequence, the pamphlet shows the Bandanese as cruel enough to merit a reprisal by the Dutch, yet the scale of the reprisal goes unmentioned. Now, the next account about the conquest is Nicholas van Wagenaar's Historische Verhaal, or the historical story, which was published in the following year, 1622. Now, this work simply reproduced the contents of the previous account, the Warachte Verhaal, lock, stock, and barrel. Another account that referred to the massacre was Leeuw van Eidsema's overview of the state of affairs in the Indies, which was published in 1667-68. Now, this work devoted only a paragraph to discuss the situation in Banda. Here, van Eidsema spoke about the nutmeg and maize produce, the kind of birds that are found here, and concluded his discussion with the note that Banda, moreover, had little danger of internal revolts as Amboina did. And this was because very few original Bandanese resided here, as they had moved elsewhere or they had been conquered by the company. Here, the violent handling of the Bandanese is blunted beyond recognition. So the first account, the Warachte Verhaal, had in many ways set the tone in which the conquest of Banda came to be imagined for the rest of the 17th century. The magnitude of the Dutch reprisal against the Bandanese had failed to enter the world of Dutch print. So to think about what these narratives tell us about Dutch colonial culture, I raise a few points. Firstly, following Said, we can define colonial culture as, I quote, structures of attitude and reference, unquote, about the colonies. In the 17th century, the dominant image of the VOC in print was that of a trader and colonizer, but the colonizer image of the company did not take into account the violence that had made the colonization possible. So we certainly have instances where we see the image of a violent Dutchman celebrated about and spoken about quite literally in print culture. A very good example is Mathias Kramer's Book of Verse, which was published in 1671. Now, this work is about the expedition of a Dutch naval commander called Balthazar Bot, who fought against the Chinese naval commander Koxinga. Now, Koxinga, one must remember, is supposedly the infamous individual who forced the Dutch to leave Taiwan in 1662. So when Kramer imagines the confrontation between Bot and Koxinga in his work in 1670, the visuals he creates are quite disturbing. He calls on Bot to grind Koxinga to trifling dust and to firmly step on the neck of Koxinga and his forces. And this, however, is one of the very few depictions where Dutch violence is endorsed and even celebrated. The common avatar of the Dutch in Asia, in Dutch culture, was that of the merchant and the gentleman colonizer. And this fed into the standard 17th century self-representations of the Dutch Republic, Holland, and Amsterdam as purveyors of global trade. Secondly, the Dutch relationship with Banda was blatantly colonial. However, because the massacre was not spoken about, this meant that the dominant image of the Dutch as merchants was hardly removed. Works on Banda strengthened associations of the islands with its produce, but did not speak about the bloodshed that made the conquest possible. Now, this evaluation of how Banda was represented in Dutch print culture comes very close to Julie Hochstrasser's estimation of 17th century Dutch visual imagery. Now, in her article titled The Conquest of Spice, Hochstrasser says that 17th century still life portraits, which were paintings, which showed spices that were brought to the Republic from other parts of the world, did not really demonstrate the violent conquest that went into the acquisition of these spices. So was this silence in print about the Banda massacre responsible for creating the disconnect between reality on one hand and representation on the other? I would argue yes. This is because the impact of print culture on other realms of culture could be quite influential. From my own study of 17th and 18th century Dutch drama about Asia, what was striking was the manner in which travel accounts and histories about Asia influenced playwrights living in Amsterdam and gave them subjects that they could write plays about. So this proves that not only did literature about Asia have a readership in the Dutch Republic, but they also influenced the characterization of Asia in other contexts. Secondly, the Banda massacre was obviously known about in the Republic. For a company that sent out 1 million men to Asia, one would assume that eyewitnesses and others in the East Indies at the time who returned informed compatriots about the Banda massacre. Yet we find no evidence about the fact that this episode was debated or discussed in the period. So this would prove that the massacre was never explicitly written about in print in the 17th century, and because of that, it failed to leave an imprint on Dutch culture. The 17th century narratives which entered print and those which did not, they reveal the creation of a cultural archive. They privileged the telling of a certain version of events which highlighted the untrustworthiness of the Bandanese and legitimized Dutch colonization of the islands. The consequence was the overall justification of Dutch conquest. But beyond these broad brush strokes, there are no doubt small differences in the perspectives that were adopted in these individual accounts. As argued before, the nature of the violent conquest is readily apparent in the narratives that were unpublished and absent in the printed works. This difference points to the role of the VOC in censoring the published narratives. The company probably did so because they feared a backlash in the form of a moral outrage, both from their own compatriots as well as from their other European rivals. But irrespective of their intentions, their efforts met with success because it was mostly a silence that reigned in the public sphere when it came to the massacre. Criticism of the conquest of Banda and the massacre were only voiced in the 19th century by individuals who had access to the unpublished accounts about the massacre in the company archives. So unlike Said and Wecker, I'm inclined to argue that this culture of silence in print that we witness in the 17th century was not entirely the outcome of denial. The Republic wasn't told very much in what was a very effective medium of communication, print. As a result, they continued to visualize their compatriots in Asia as zealous traders and noble colonizers. The bloodied sword that had made it possible was quietly sheathed and put away. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kurupat, for presenting your idea on the Banda Massacre. And if you read Indonesian, you will find that many of the attendants would like to read your paper. So please, if you don't mind, send your paper in this chat room. Yeah. Jadi if I may, I would like to speak in bahasa, in Indonesian. Jadi intinya Dr. Kurupat ingin menyampaikan bahwa peristiwa yang disebut dengan pembantaian di Pulau Banda itu merupakan tafsiran yang terjadi kemudian setelah abad ke-19. Pada masa sebelumnya itu tidak ada, itu tidak disebut dengan sebuah pembantaian. Dr. Kurupat ingin menyampaikan bahwa dia melihatnya dari perspektif postkolonial seperti yang disampaikan oleh Edward Said dan Gloria Wecker. Saya nggak tahu Gloria Wecker. Kalau Edward Said saya kira kita cukup populer ya. Nah, prinsipnya dengan berbagai data, baik itu arsip, catatan drama atau lukisan, itu ditemukan bahwa tafsiran atas kejahatan yang dilakukan oleh Kun di masa itu adalah tafsiran yang muncul setelah abad ke-19 ya. Tapi bagaimanapun Kun is a great hero for the Netherlands ya. So he ushered the welfare of the Netherlands in the future after his position as Governor General in Batavia. And ya, saya kira saya nggak mau bicara panjang lebar lagi, tapi saya ingin menyampaikan bahwa seperti yang pernah saya kaji sebelumnya, bahwa protes terhadap Kun itu luar biasa, especially for this massacre. So when one of an area of in Utrecht would like to put on his name in the street, the people of Hoorn, the town where Kun was born, protested to the naming of this street. So, but finally they agreed after they proposed the idea that okay, you can put the name of Kun here, but please write down his what has he done in Banda after killing 14,400 people of Banda. So, and finally the people of Hoorn agreed to have the name of Kun in this street in Utrecht. And the third speaker, I would like to give the opportunity to Pak Laude Rabbani. You may speak in English or in Bahasa Indonesia. It's up to you. Time is yours, Pak Laude.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Joni atas waktunya. Saya kira ada dua alasan, ya meskipun ini nggak banyak alasan untuk berbahasa Indonesia karena topiknya seminar nasional gitu ya. Jadi itu hanya justifikasi saja. Jadi saya berbahasa Indonesia, mohon maaf sebelumnya Pak Joni dan teman-teman yang lain. Yang pertama-tama saya terima kasih kepada Ketua Departemen dan juga Dekan Fakultas Ilmu Budaya yang sudah bekerja keras untuk menyiapkan acara ini. Terima kasih kepada para peserta yang masih ada di ruang Zoom. Saya kira ini pesertanya banyak dan saya berterima kasih bisa bertahan sampai selesai ya. Baik, topik saya share screen dulu. Topik saya sangat dekat dengan yang disampaikan oleh pembicara kedua tadi, Majusa ya, tentang perang Amboina, rempah dan dampaknya di pantai timur Sulawesi ini di abad ke-17. Tentu saja ini terkait dengan bukan bukan fokusnya nanti ke perangnya, tetapi implikasi dari perang ini di sisi barat, ya, sisi barat Laut Banda, atau mungkin kalau istilah geografis yang lebih mudah adalah di pantai timur Sulawesi Timur, ya, karena sisi barat itu belum begitu familiar di telinga. Tapi kalau kita melihat dari sisi dari laut misalnya, maka kawasan itu menjadi sisi barat Laut Banda. Di sebelah kiri itu ada peta, itulah wilayah yang nanti akan menerima pengaruh dari perang Amboina. Dan tentu saja di sebelah kanan itu ada laut ya, yang saya biru-biru itu ya gambar, itu bukan laut ya. Tapi kalau kita berada di atas perahu mungkin, atau di mana Google Earth itu mungkin kita bisa melihatnya dengan jelas. Masih dengan geografis, kira-kira Ambon itu di mana? Mungkin tadi di peta sebetulnya sudah bisa kelihatan ya, ada di sini ya, di ini di agak kanan itu setelah Pulau Buru ya, ada Pulau Ambon, kemudian view-nya lebih dekat dan itu ada benteng VOC di sana beserta kapal-kapalnya, itu bisa dilihat pada abad 17 dan tentu saja kalau di tahun itu 16-17 ya, jadi bisa dilihat. Nah, saya mencatat beberapa periode penting di dalam melihat bagaimana konflik atau mungkin perebutan hegemoni terhadap pusat produsen rempah ini. 1623 itu saya kira itu tentang atau terjadinya perang. Itu kalau saya tidak salah ada korban, dan saya kira tadi sudah disampaikan, kadang-kadang orang mengatakan itu bagian dari pembantaian, tapi itu katanya tadi adalah tafsir setelah abad 19. Namun yang penting dari periode ini saya kira adalah dampak yang lebih luas ya. Di periode ini kemudian kita melihat ada aliansi juga dibangun antara penguasa dan juga orang-orang Eropa termasuk VOC. Kalau di dalam sejarah itu kita melihat bahwa orang-orang Bugis Makassar mungkin Makassar ya, itu akan sangat senang dengan para pedagang Inggris. Jadi upaya-upaya hegemoni ini dibangun sedemikian rupa. Lalu kemudian tercipta juga ada menyatukan diri ya lewat perjanjian-perjanjian, itu kan sebetulnya bagian dari upaya mengintegrasikan diri. Kalau kita lihat lebih jauh perkembangannya kemudian sampai pada perjanjian Bungaya itu, kita melihat bahwa Makassar berada dalam pihak yang dikuasai atau mengalami kekalahan. Jadi mungkin saya mengistilahkan bahwa menguasai Makassar berarti memenangkan kompetisi, karena kontrol atas jalur pelayaran ke barat atau dari barat ke pusat produksi rempah itu saya kira lewat Makassar. Bisa lewat Selat Makassar, bisa juga lewat di Laut Flores, dan itu semuanya ada di bawah pengaruh Makassar. Nanti setelah perang 1667 yang kita kenal dengan perang Makassar itu yang dimenangkan oleh aliansi VOC, Buton, Bugis, kemudian Ternate. Kemudian untuk kalau teman-teman pergi ke mana? Ke benteng Rotterdam di Makassar itu kan ada bastion-bastion, itu saya kira itu bagian dari representasi dari apa namanya periode ini ya. Nah, bagaimana ini apa namanya Ambon itu menjadi sesuatu yang diperebutkan? Yang pertama, kepulauan itu merupakan pusat komoditas. Jadi pusat rempah-rempah baru, bukan rempah baru ya, tapi pusat rempah yang memang hanya ada di situ ya. Artinya yang punya produksi melimpah itu di sana. Yang kedua, karena dia pusat pusat produsen atau pusat produksi yang melimpah, maka orang-orang yang apa namanya ingin berdagang tentang rempah itu kemudian ada atau hadir di Kepulauan Maluku atau di Ambon itu ya, dan pulau-pulau sekitarnya. Dan saya kira yang paling penting tentu saja para pedagang yang kemudian menggerakkan militernya itu adalah karena harganya tinggi di pasar Eropa dan di Asia Barat. Nah, perubahan interaksi antara penduduk lokal dan pendatang, saya kira saya tidak tahu tadi Majusa berbicara tentang bagaimana politik Inggris itu dalam apa namanya menghilangkan penduduk lokal diganti dengan penduduk-penduduk yang berasal dari budak dan para tawanan. Saya kira itu adalah juga satu topik yang menarik dari praktek-praktek kolonial di Nusantara. Nah, kalau melihat peta ini tentu saja ini adalah dibanding dengan peta saya di atas tadi, maka itu ada garis yang misalnya kalau mau ke pusat produsen rempah itu, misalnya dari Makassar itu nanti kita melewati yang namanya sisi barat Laut Banda. Ya. Jadi ada dua itu yang saya kira menonjol, satu itu adalah cengkeh, yang kedua adalah pala, dan itu tersebar di Banda dan apa namanya Kepulauan Maluku yang lain. Nah, ada yang menarik dari apa namanya dari kondisi tersebut, karena Sulawesi Timur itu ada di ruang antara. Ruang antara itu satu di pusat produksi rempah itu kan dikuasai oleh saya kira Ternate ya, kuat. Ya. Kemudian di sebelah barat itu di sebelah barat itu ada Kerajaan Makassar. Ya, jadi dua-duanya terlibat di dalam perang. Yang satu itu perang Amboina, itu saya kira melibatkan Inggris, dan juga tuduhannya sesuai tafsiran itu adalah tentara bayaran dari Jepang ditambah plus warga Portugies kalau saya tidak salah. Yang kedua, kerajaan-kerajaan atau kekuasaan-kekuasaan lokal itu membentang di sepanjang pantai timur itu, ya, pantai timur Sulawesi. Jadi kalau kita melihat itu, maka kalau berdirinya kerajaan tanpa ditopang ekonomi, saya kira juga tidak mungkin. Jadi kerajaan-kerajaan itu semakin berkembang. Ya. Nah, tentu saja VOC yang dianggap kuat ini menjadi sekutu dan sekaligus musuh ya. Jadi di suatu waktu VOC menjadi sahabat, di waktu yang lain bisa menjadi musuh. Saya kira kalau membaca sejarah Makassar, sejarah Bugis, sejarah Buton, sejarah Ternate, kondisi-kondisi seperti ini dengan mudah bisa ditemukan. Nah, apa yang terjadi kemudian? Kita lihat bahwa aliansi-aliansi ini kemudian terbentuk. Ya. Kita tahu aliansi baru yang dibangun VOC itu kemudian melakukan perang yang disebut dengan Perang Makassar itu. Dan mereka kalau sesuai traktat Bungaya itu ya, perjanjian Bungaya, mereka menjadi pemenang dari perang ini. Ya, seperti yang saya katakan, melemahnya Makassar berarti kemenangan atau memenangkan kompetisi pada jalur pelayaran dan perdagangan rempah. Nah, kalau kemudian apa yang disampaikan oleh Gaynor bahwa kemenangan VOC dan aliansinya itu ternyata melahirkan apa namanya konversi itu mungkin dari saya, tetapi Gaynor mengatakan ada perubahan majikan setelah kekalahan Makassar. Jadi ini punya konsekuensi karena satu sisi sangat dimungkinkan terjadinya adaptasi baru yang saya sebut dengan konversi etnik. Bisa saja orang-orang Makassar yang dulu ya atau berada di bawah pengaruh Makassar ini akan segera beralih menjadi bagian dari Bugis. Ya. Yang kedua, kesultanan atau raja-raja di sepanjang pantai timur Sulawesi Timur itu menjadi bagian dari pengaruh Bugis dan pengaruh Ternate. Ya. Jadi kalau melihat apa namanya arsip-arsip yang ada, misalnya Bungku, kemudian sebagian kerajaan Buton itu juga bagian dari pengaruh Ternate, tetapi juga sangat kuat dengan pengaruh Bugis. Yang sebelumnya itu adalah pengaruh Makassar. Jadi kalau VOC atau kerajaan Makassar sampai menggerakkan 5.000 tentara yang kemudian itu dikurung di Pulau Makassar di depan kota satu pulau di depan atau di tengah selat Bau-Bau itu ya, itu saya kira Teluk ya, bukan selat. Di Teluk Bau-Bau itu adalah bagian dari memori persaingan antara Makassar dan juga VOC saya kira di periode ini. Maka tentu saja ada yang hal yang menarik, misalnya kita lihat konsekuensi dari perang ini. Yang satu, ada efek psikologis. Saya mengidentifikasi ya. Yang pertama, industri senjata dan pembangunan benteng-benteng pertahanan di jalur pelayaran dan perdagangan di sisi barat Laut Banda ini atau di Sulawesi Timur ini itu meningkat. Jadi berbagai pulau itu ada banyak benteng-benteng yang didirikan di kawasan itu. Ya. Ini salah satu efek. Kemudian dari sisi sosial politik, ini mendorong terbentuknya yang saya sebut tadi adalah aliansi atau kerjasama antar kelompok-kelompok politik bersama dengan aliansi barunya yang disebut dengan apa namanya VOC, Ternate, Buton, Bone. Ya. Jadi itu yang apa namanya yang sempat saya identifikasi. Nah, dari sisi ekonomi ini penguasaan jalur perdagangan dan kerjasama ekonomi ini bisa diwujudkan misalnya dalam Hongitohten itu kan saya kira salah satu kebijakan yang menghancurkan rempah-rempah yang jauh atau tidak terkontrol efektif oleh kekuasaan VOC. Jadi misalnya di Pulau Wangi-Wangi itu
menyala otomatis masuk ke pengaturannya.
Tolong di-unmute dulu. Ya, jadi misalnya di Pulau Wangi-Wangi, kemudian di beberapa pulau yang lain di sekitar apa namanya pantai timur Sulawesi Timur itu rempah-rempahnya itu ditebang. Kemudian VOC memberikan kompensasi yang apa namanya 100 gulden per tahun untuk sebagai ganti rugi. Nah, dari dampak-dampak itu, kemudian saya mensinyalir ini perang ini kemudian membentuk geoekonomi dan geopolitik baru. Ya, jadi kalau kemudian di masa-masa kemudian setelah atau di abad 18, 19 dan abad 20 kawasan ini menjadi sesuatu yang sangat kosmopolitan dan ada banyak pusat-pusat pemukiman dan juga pusat-pusat pelabuhan yang kemudian menjadi kota-kota pantai. Itu saya kira adalah bagian dari konsekuensi dari perjalanan panjang dari efek rempah ini. Ya, meskipun itu agak sangat evolusi, tapi saya pikir dengan situasi yang ada itu adalah track yang dilalui. Ya. Nah, kira-kira sebagai catatan akhir, tentu saja ada satu yang saya rekam di dalam arsip. Mereka memilih, ya, para penguasa lokal itu memilih perjanjian abadi yang saya kira di dalamnya memang titik tertentu sangat merugikan, tetapi di titik yang lain kalau itu dimaknai secara mendalam dan lebih jauh, saya melihat bahwa perjanjian abadi ini tentu saja dalam kerangka atau dalam konteks perlindungan dan mengambil kesempatan untuk berkembang bersama di tengah ekonomi VOC. Itu saya kira itu Mas Joni. Terima kasih, dan selanjutnya mohon pertanyaan-pertanyaan. Terima kasih.
Oke, terima kasih banyak Pak Rabani atas presentasinya yang luar biasa, yang memberikan pandangan baru tentang apa yang terjadi dengan Perang Amboina. Sekarang kita tiba di sesi tanya jawab. Ini tadi ada yang sempat raise hand. Siapa ya tadi? Tapi menghilang lagi. Masih adakah? Oke, jika tidak ada akan saya bacakan dulu ini pertanyaan yang disampaikan untuk Dr. Salina. Ini yang dari Muhammad Mahir Rahman, ya, student, graduate student of Culture and Literary Studies. Dia menanyakan ini, saya mohon maaf, saya juga baca ada pertanyaan sebelumnya untuk Dr. Purpat, tapi saya baca ini karena ada pertanyaan terkait dengan urutan pembicara tadi, supaya Dr. Salina bisa bersiap-siap juga. Jadi mengapa Belanda atau Olanda, ya, dia mengutip dari ucapan bagaimana orang Portugis menyebut Belanda, menguasai Malacca dengan mudahnya? Apakah selain Nina Catu, apakah ada orang lain yang dapat diangkat Portugis menjadi petinggi di Malacca? Jadi ada dua pertanyaan itu. Silakan Bu Salina.
Masih unmute.
Masih mute, perlu di-unmute.
Saya mute. Okey. Sebenarnya Belanda cuba bukan 3 kali ya. Kali pertama 1606, itu bila Mathias membuat perjanjian dengan Johor. Tapi Johor tidak hantar bantuan ya. 1608 kali kedua. Kemudian yang berjaya itu 1641 dan 1640 itu dikepung bersama-sama dengan bantuan daripada Johor. Pada masa itu kan, maksudnya bukan mudah dari 3 percubaan. Percubaan yang ketiga yang berjaya. 1641 apabila Johor dengan memberi bantuan yang banyaknya kepada VOC masa itu ya. Dan perjanjian 1639, ada satu perjanjian ditandatangani oleh VOC sama dengan Johor yang diwakili oleh Laksamana Paduka Raja Tun Abdul Jamil, dan Johor berjanji akan memberi bantuan, dan di situlah ada perjanjian di mana Belanda berjanji akan memberi kita katakan harta rampasan itu yang berupa artillery ataupun persenjataan kepada Johor, dan kemudian pembesar Johor akan diberi keistimewaan dalam perdagangan di Selat Melaka. Itu menarik sekali. 1639 kemudian diperkuatkan lagi 1641 dan perserangan itu 1640 kemudian dikepung. Akhirnya 16 Februari 1641 kata silap saya, Januari 1641. Saya bentar tengok dulu. Tadi ada. Okey. Okey. Dikepung Januari, 14 Januari 1641, barulah berjaya dikepung daripada Jun dikepung itu Melaka oleh tentera POC dan dibantu oleh tentera Johor. Okey. Okey, berkenaan dengan pegawai di Melaka ya. Okey, Nina Catu salah seorang yang dilantik menjadi bendahara, kemudian diganti oleh Raja Abdullah dari Kampar. Kemudian Raja Abdullah tadi saya katakan Raja Abdullah kemudiannya disebabkan oleh fitnah oleh Bartolomeo Pestero, akhirnya dengan anak-anak Nina Catu. Kerana anak Nina Catu ni dia sangat marah ya apabila Nina Catu digantikan dengan Raja Abdullah. Kerana Nina Catu ini membantu Portugis, adalah orang yang sangat penting, menyampaikan surat-surat Rao de Araujo kepada Alfonso. Kemudian selepas Melaka jatuh, Alfonso sendiri yang melantik Nina Catu jadi bendahara. Tapi Alfonso jugalah yang menjatuhkan Nina Catu apabila Raja Abdullah ni 1514 apabila George di Albuquerque datang untuk menjadi Captain Major. So Raja Abdullah tu telah menghantar surat kepada George di Albuquerque mengatakan dia setuju bekerjasama dengan Portugis. Okey. Jadi George ni sebagai sepupu kepada Alfonso, beliau telah menghantar surat kepada Alfonso mengatakan bagaimanakah tindakan beliau kepada Raja Abdullah. Jadi Alfonso telah menghantar balasannya kepada George dan mengatakan gantikan Nina Catu dengan Raja Abdullah, kerana dia kata Nina Catu ini sebenarnya Nina Catu ini memang dia banyak menolong Portugis, tetapi dia dikatakan sebagai seorang yang tidak disukai oleh pegawai-pegawai, oleh orang Portugis yang lain dan juga pembesar-pembesar Melayu yang masih ada yang menyokong Portugis. Jadi tak disukai. Jadi itu Alfonso. Jadi Nina Catu bunuh diri macam saya katakan tadi. He committed suicide. He called all the Portuguese officers and all his family members. After that, he burned himself. So dia committed suicide. So disebabkan itu anak-anaknya marah pada Raja Abdullah. Jadi dengan pertolongan Bartolomeo Pestero, mereka membuat fitnah mengatakan Raja Abdullah itu menjadi bendahara kerana nak mengembalikan Kesultanan Melaka. Maksudnya Raja Abdullah itu sebenarnya adalah ejen kepada Sultan Mahmud. Tapi sebenarnya Sultan Mahmud dan Raja Abdullah itu menantu beliau, menantu baginda Sultan Mahmud. Tetapi Sultan Mahmud dengan Raja Abdullah itu ada masalah. Sultan Mahmud ada satu lagi menantu itu raja dari Bintan katanya, dari Bentan. Tapi itu menantu yang sangat menyokong Sultan Mahmud. Tapi Raja Abdullah ni dia berkisih dengan Sultan Mahmud, dia bersanggup untuk bekerjasama dengan Portugis. Jadi beliau sebenarnya tidak ada keinginan pun untuk mengembalikan Sultan Mahmud sebagai sultan sebenarnya. Tetapi disebabkan difitnah, akhirnya Raja Abdullah itu dibunuh, dipenggal kepalanya. Itulah dalam rekod Portugis juga mengatakan selepas Raja Abdullah itu dibunuh, Raja Abdullah itu dibunuh, apa yang berlaku kepada Melaka ialah Melaka diserang famine. Famine maksud dia kemarau panjang, dan anak-anak Nina Catu dan juga Bartolomeo melarikan diri, tak tinggal di Melaka, takut mereka juga dihukum. Okay. So, selain daripada Nina Catu, Raja Abdullah, terdapat juga Regimo di Raja. Regimo di Raja tadi disebut sebagai ketua ataupun pemimpin. Dia sebenarnya daripada orang Melayu, tapi dia menjadi pemimpin kepada orang Melayu dan Parsi. Dan satu lagi, dan beliau juga dilantik sebagai temenggung. Tapi di samping Regimo di Raja, ada satu lagi orang-orang dari dikatakan orang Sulu, orang Sulu yang dilantik sebagai Tuan Muhammadiyah. Tuan Muhammadiyah ini pernah menjadi temenggung di Melaka. Tetapi selepas itu yang dilantik bukan lagi selepas Raja Abdullah meninggal dan kemudian Regimo di Raja semua meninggal, dilantik oleh orang Portugis. Bukan lagi, tapi jawatan tu masih kekal. Jawatan bendahara, jawatan temenggung dan syamadan itu kekal. Itu yang kalau setakat yang maklumat yang saya adalah. Tapi kalau ada soalan lagi, kita boleh cuba untuk jawab. Okey, terima kasih.
Okey, terima kasih banyak Dr. Salina Zainul.
Terima kasih atas jawabannya.
Kemudian ini mohon tunggu Mas Muhammad Ali Azga. Jadi ini sekalian saya bacakan pertanyaan yang pertama ini, khawatir terlewat. The question goes to Dr. Kurupat. It is interesting that you mentioned the difference between conquest and massacre. after 19th century, if I'm not mistaken, you shared a new point of view that translates the tragedy of massacre. I want to ask about what the conflict of interest occurred behind after 19th century that made the Netherlands honestly confess what Jan Petersen Koen did. So yeah, please respond to this question, Dr. Kurupat.
Yes, of course. Thank you for this question. Apridzani Siafrola, thank you very much for asking me this question. So I think it's important. So I think the basic gist of my presentation was that in the course of the 17th century, the Banda Massacre was never really spoken about in print in the Dutch Republic. But something happens in the 19th century whereby people actually start discussing the kind of atrocities that the Dutch engaged in the conquest of the Banda Islands. So I think there is one problem here, which is that the Netherlands is not confessing, because when you speak about the Netherlands confessing, it would essentially point to the state as an entity speaking about its historical past. But that was not what was essentially happening in the 19th century Netherlands. What was the case was that you have archivists like J.A. van der Kuys and J.K.J. de Jonge, who were writing up source publications from the Dutch East India Company archives. So what I mean by this is that in the 19th century, the Dutch East India Company archives was opened out. And a lot of the material in the archive, in the form of 17th century correspondence, was being printed and was being published as books. So there were certain events about which very little was known to the public in the 17th century, all of a sudden was now open for everyone to read. And the archivists, J.K.J. Jonge and J.A. van der Kuys, were among the first people to read about the kind of atrocities that took place in the context of the Banda Massacre. And as a result of which, criticized what the company had done in the 1600s. But what is interesting to note is that Jan Petersen Koen was mostly forgotten by the end of the 17th century and even in the 18th century in the Netherlands. It was only in the 19th century that people start regarding him as a hero and demanding that his work in the Indies be celebrated. So in the 19th century, there were essentially two movements. One was a move to criticize what Jan Petersen Koen and the Dutch East India Company had done in Banda. And at the same time, there was another set of people who actually set out demanding that the efforts of Jan Petersen Koen in creating the Dutch Empire be celebrated. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Kurupat.
Thank you.
Apridzani, do you want to discuss further about this?
No, I just want to say thank you, but I think that's enough for me. So you can continue this discussion afterwards. Thank you, Pak Joni.
Okay, thank you. And please, Mas Azka, Ali Azka.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Joni, for the time, and thank you for Ms. Alina Nasional and Dr. Kurupat and Pak Laute for the explanation and presentation. I have a question for Ms. Zainul about Portuguese. As I know, many Europe colonial countries expanded their colonial countries on their colonial land, like British, Spain, and Dutch. But as I know, Portuguese did not expand their country. In India, Portuguese, as I know, they only have Goa for their colony, and on Southeast Asia, they only have two, East Timor and Malacca. My question: why Portuguese are not expanding their empire on Asia? As simple as that. Thank you, Ms. Zainul.
Okay, thank you, Mas Azka. Pak Sarkawi, do you want to ask to Pak Dr. Salina or Dr.
Yes. I have a simple question to Ibu Salina Zainal. Kalau ke Pak Laude nanti saya tanya di kampus saja lah. Dr. Salina, thank you for your interesting lecture today. A few years ago, maybe 2014, Johnny and I visited to Malacca and witnessed the past Portuguese glory in Malacca. And one day, on my way from Jakarta to Surabaya, I read an article about the Malacca in an aviation magazine.
Okay.
The article is written, if you want to see the glory of Malaysia in the past, visit to Malacca. And if you want to see Malaysia future, please come to Kuala Lumpur. I think this is a tourism advertisement, but I think it is a club-based rule. But my simple question is, how does the Malaysian government produce the glory of Malacca for the sake of building Malaysian identity? Thank you so much, Pak Joni.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Sarkavi. So, if time is yours, Dr. Zainal.
Okay, thank you very much. So, so let me just, I think I respond to the second question first. So later I'll come back to the first questions. So the Sarkavi actually is very interesting. Tourism slogan, something like that. So how much that the Malaysian government has done to Malacca to preserve the Malaysian identity, isn't it, Dr. Sarkavi? Again, if I'm Sarkavi, do you listen?
Okay, yeah.
Preserve Malaysian identities, or
yes, how to Malaysian governments to seek national identity for Malaysian.
Oh, okay, national identity.
Yes.
Because we always say nowadays the tourism agency of Malaysia always use that Malaysia truly Asia. Okay, and it's one of the slogan. Yeah.
Yes.
So, how how the government is doing to preserve our local identities or Malaysian identities is actually just now when we mentioned about Malacca. So, I think the budget on tourism, so they have preserved, like in Malacca, if you go, we have a very interesting kind of, like we have how the government did to preserve the Portuguese community. They have a Portuguese village there, Portuguese village that if you go, is a special kind of a very unique kind of a tourist destination. And very interesting is actually Portuguese community in Malacca. They are still preserving the traditional Portuguese. Even the Portuguese coming from Portugal, they said that they experience, the old culture of the Portuguese, which still being practiced by the Portuguese in Malacca. So another thing, the government, apart from the budget, so the government also make like a national festive days and everything. And in Malacca, another thing which I really want to promote to you all is actually one of the village which is very interesting. They call it the Kampung Chetty, or Chetty village, which is very interesting. If you go to the Chetty village, you see most of them that they have the Indian features, but they speak Malay. All the rituals are done in Malay language, which I attended one seminar there. We had a seminar before that. So I myself, as a Malaysian, find it's very special, that village. And then we know that during the era of Malacca, either before Portuguese and after Portuguese, before Portuguese especially, and after Portuguese too, we know that the Malay language has become was the lingua franca, and the Indian traders, when they came here, Actually, they didn't bring their family. So they married, I believe, that they married to the local women, okay? The local ladies. So the mothers actually preserve the culture and everything. So the culture is a Malay culture, but the religion is Hindu, and they practice Hinduism, but with the Malay kind of traditional Malay language, Malay traditional culture, Malay, they eat Malay dishes, they wear Malay dress, but they are Hindus. It's very interesting. So this is one, those are the interesting tourist destinations, or also interesting, unique culture that we have in Malacca. We also have in Penang. We have the Baba Nyonya. In Malacca also we have the Baba Nyonya community. So the government, put in some budget, and also they, they have this festive for this community, and also, of course, for the Malays. Malay is majority of the main ethnic. Of course, that's how the government preserve. So those are the things. So another for the second, the first questions. Why did the Portuguese did not expand their territorial conquest? Our student asking just now. Okay, they had Malacca, they had East Timor in Malay Archipelago, and they had a number of posts in India, but they also had a post in Macau and Nagasaki. Okay, so actually not only in Archipelago. It's just that as I mentioned before this, actually in administration wise, so the Portuguese and Spanish are lack of administration apparatus compared to the British, compared to the Dutch, so because they are actually coming from the monarchical traditions, and then the sole power is in the hands of the king and also the fidalgos. Okay, so in order to have a very strong, I think, expansionist network, I think the British and the Dutch, and also later on the Danish, they are much better than the Portuguese and the Spanish, because for example, during their administration in Malacca also, one of the reasons why they fail is because of lack experience in administration, especially civil administrations. Do they know they have quite a like every time when they got attacked from Johor or from Aceh, they got military assistance from Patani, from Pahang, and also they got assistance from military from Goa and from Diu or Cochin. But still in administrative networks, this is actually the weakness of the Portuguese, why they couldn't expand much more than the Dutch and the British later. That is one of my the factors that I can see. Okay, so maybe Dr. Manjusa, you have something to add on?
Well, I completely agree with you there, because I think the administrative setup was very different. One factor that is always brought in to distinguish between the Portuguese Empire in Asia and the Dutch Empire in Asia is the lack of manpower that the Portuguese had. And the Dutch usually compensated for it with the kind of recruitment that they were able to procure from neighboring countries such as Scandinavia, Germany. So if you look at a lot of the Dutch East India Company employees, both in the 17th as well as the 18th century, there is perhaps only a nominal percentage of people who are actually from the Dutch Republic, and majority of their workforce come from other countries. And this was a significant problem for the Portuguese, which again, in a way, proved to be useful for them in the long term, particularly if you're looking at their presence in Timor, for instance, as well as the islands towards the southern part of Indonesia. And this is particularly because they were able to intermarry with the local population to a far greater extent than the Dutch did. And these people continued to maintain a Portuguese culture, which was that they were Christianized. They were called topazes because they used to wear Portuguese hats. They followed Portuguese culture. They identified themselves as being the Black Portuguese. And as a result of which they continued their association with the Portuguese Empire long after the Dutch were already present in Asia. Yeah. So this idea of informal empire, I think, worked two ways for the Portuguese. One was that it weakened the empire. It wasn't as centralized as the Dutch Empire. But at the same time, it proved beneficial for them in the long run, because culturally it meant that they had allies in different parts of the archipelago as well as Asia in total.
I think Dr. Manjusa, I've read one of the crew, you know, of Secura crew, when they were arrested by the Sultan of Malacca. Then there was one Italian, you know, he was an Italian, you know, he worked under the Portuguese crown. So you know, at that time, I was looking for information of where was the locations of the mosque of Malacca, which was mentioned before, you know. So his letter was very interesting, but unfortunately, I've read that when I did my master's last time. When I go back to the library now, I couldn't find the letter anymore. Someone may have, you know, just cut it off from the Portuguese documents that we have. So I couldn't find that anymore. But I remember well, in that letter, this Italian guy, he was telling his father about the situations in Malacca. It was a very interesting letter, but unfortunately, I didn't have at that time, we don't have a telephone that we can take photos. You know, I just write down everything. So he mentioned that in being Italian, but he was Catholic. We have to remember that, you know, Spanish and also the Portuguese, they are very strong Catholic. So that's why that's why after 1580, when the crown of Spanish and crown of Portuguese become one, so I mean that Spanish conquered Portuguese and Portugal, and then they became one. And then how they, you know, the Dutch they had to come here to find their own spice, because Lisbon was closed for them. Okay, this Italian guy, he said that Malacca, the Malacca people live in peace. Okay. And then he also mentioned that artillery technology in Malacca was far more it's a very the technology is even higher than what the Portuguese have. So this is very interesting. That letter tell me. Then the letter also exposed that they are not only Portuguese who are working under the Portuguese crown. They are also Italian, but they have to be Catholic. So, but of course, what you mentioned just now is correct. That, you know, we read the documents. It's mentioned that there were only 600 Portuguese in the fort of Malacca during when Malacca was conquered or attacked by the VOC, and only 40 married couple, 600 Portuguese and 40 married couple. Okay, the number very small in Malacca at that time. So this is one of the reasons that the number that they have are very small indeed. Okay.
All right. Okay. Yes. The Portuguese undoubtedly employed people from beyond Portugal, and I think a very good example of that is Johan van Linschoten, who writes the Itinerario, which is the travel account, which essentially
he's
the
Dutch.
interested in. In looking for the route to Asia and following in the Portuguese footsteps to Asia. So this is not to say that the Portuguese did not employ foreign labor, but if you're looking at the Dutch, they do so to a far greater extent. Yeah. And something that you mentioned, which I want to build upon, is the issue of religion. So for the Portuguese, Catholicism was, of course, very, very important. And you'd also mentioned Prester John, and you said that there was a significant amount of debate about how important religion was in their quest for empire and in their quest to conquer the spice trade. Religion was undoubtedly important for the Portuguese. And I think, this, I think, is most evident, particularly in the kind of support the Dutch get when they arrive in Asia. because they are immediately able to formulate alliances with local powers against the Portuguese, because the local powers have been significantly antagonized by the Portuguese efforts at Christianization and at conversion of the local populations. And this proves to be a considerable problem. And I think there is a general understanding that the Dutch were less forceful when it came to spreading their religion. And I think there is a lot of truth in that. But of course, when you are looking at the Dutch archives, you also see this constant engagement with the issue of Christianization and the issue of Islamic conversion, as I mentioned before. And the idea of jihad, where for instance, you have Sultan Ageng Tirta Yasa of Banten in the 1680s. He's trying to muster support of, other neighboring countries in order to formulate what he thought is an Islamic alliance against the Dutch. And at the same time, the Dutch are also the Dutch are also accusing Banten of converting Dutchmen to Christianity. So this proves to be a constant problem, but I think this was less of a problem in the Dutch context as opposed to the Portuguese context. Johnny, just if I could raise one more issue of why the Portuguese Empire was less successful, and that relates to capital. So the amount of money that the Portuguese crown could use to finance their operations in Asia. So the Portuguese crown had to rely significantly on bankers from Venice to finance their operations in Asia. This is apart from the capital they were getting from the intra-Asiatic trade. But if you're looking at the Dutch Republic, there was a significant amount of capital coming into the Dutch Republic because this was a time of turbulence in Europe. And because of that, you have migrants from other parts of Europe, particularly from France, the French Huguenots, because of the wars of violence. They were migrating to the Dutch Republic because the Dutch Republic was more tolerant. And they brought their capital with them. And they were involved in setting up the Dutch East India Company and providing a significant amount of capital to finance their ventures in Asia. So, so 2 points just to add to what you've already said.
Dr. Manjusha, Dr. Jenny, just for 5 minutes. Dr. Manjusha, actually, in referring to, the religious factor, religion as a factor of the conquest for the empire. So I think we cannot deny that, because its religion is very easy if you use that as a factor of anything, like, Cornelius the Houseman and, the Houseman's rest in, the conflict between the Housemans and the Achinese Sultanate, that they said, they were forced to convert to Islam, and then that's why, the conflict took place and this kind of thing, actually. But when it comes to what C.R. Box, Sardesai and C.R. Box said, actually, religion come into picture when it relates to the commercial ends, that it brings something in, it brings wealth to them, so that's why Sardesai said it's not merely religion. That's why, as Professor Xavier said, Malacca was administered ungodly. So when they came to look for Pastor John, when they found wealth, they forgot about Pastor John. They actually trying to to get the personal wealth, interest and everything. So that's why how the corruptions and nepotism come into picture. So these are the things why Sardesai and C.R. Box refuted that gold was the main factor, of the Portuguese coming and Spanish coming here. So gold with the gold, God with the gold, God which can bring gold. Okay, so this is what an arguments posed by Sardesai and Boxer. Okay.
Okay, it's nice discussion. Actually, I also made a small research on comparing the city of Malacca and Cochin in southern India during the Portuguese and the Dutch occupation. So I just wanted to compare the buildings in the cities during the Dutch and the Portuguese, and I found that there are many more religious buildings during the Portuguese rather than the Dutch, both in Cochin and in Malacca. So, yeah, okay, but I don't want to talk further about this because it is not fair if I don't give time to Pak Laude Rabani. There is one question for you about the geopolitical and geoeconomic of the Kingdom of Makassar during the Bongaya. Ya, selama perjanjian Bongaya. Silakan Pak Rabani.
Iya, terima kasih pertanyaannya Mas siapa ini? Muslimin ya. Khairul Muslimin. Ya, makasih pertanyaannya yang sangat bagus. Cuma ini kalau dilihat periodenya yaitu agak ini ya. Tetapi saya mau mengatakan bahwa yang terjadi di di kerajaan Goa atau yang dikenal dengan kerajaan Makassar itu saya kira hanya berganti penguasa saya kira, tetapi secara politik, geopolitik dan geoekonomi tidak berubah signifikan ya, meskipun dia dalam posisi tadi saya mengatakan melemah atau dalam posisi kalah gitu kan. Tapi fungsi-fungsi lama itu tetap dimainkan, hanya saja tidak lagi berseberangan dengan VOC dan tentu saja tidak lagi membangun musuh baru yang lebih besar. Tapi kontrol atas wilayah yang menjadi jalur perdagangan rempah itu menjadi sangat kuat, dan di sana kemudian aliansi dengan VOC itu dibangun dengan baik di satu periode, tetapi di periode yang lain itu berseberangan. Hanya saja ya lagi-lagi kawasan ini tetap berkembang baik secara politik maupun secara ekonomi karena berada di wilayah yang sangat kosmopolitan, sangat ramai, dan tentu saja periode abad 17 mungkin adalah mungkin sampai awal abad 19 dan saya kira studi Pak Edward Polinggomang kalau itu dibaca itu akan menjelaskan dengan baik bagaimana Makassar itu tumbuh ya setelah perjanjian Bungaya, dan saya kira sampai hari ini juga masih memainkan peran yang sama menjadi hub atau core dari perkembangan dari kawasan timur atau kawasan Indonesia, bagian timur Indonesia. Ya, saya kira itu singkat Mas Muslimin. Makassar tetap berfungsi baik secara sosial maupun ekonomi sampai hari ini. Belum ada wilayah yang sebanding atau punya posisi geostrategis dan geopolitik sebaik Makassar, saya kira. Seperti itu Mas Joni, terima kasih.
Makassar.
Terima kasih banyak. Gimana Pak Sarkawi? Baik, it's now 14 minutes past 5, so I don't want to make this discussion longer, but I do really appreciate your participation, the speakers and participants. So thank you so much, and I'm hoping that you can present in the near future in Erlangga University, so we can discuss in different topics. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Kurpat, Dr. Zainal, and Dr. Rabani, and all of you. Yeah, please applause for all of us.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Yeah.
Kalina,
Okay.
Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih. Sampai ketemu lagi, sampai bertemu lagi. See you later. It's time for prayer in Surabaya. Okay. Bye.